We have 200 fruits and vegetables. We have oil, gold, manganese, diamonds, water. We're the second most endowed nation per capita in the world with fresh water. We have 15 million hectares of pristine forests. We have 200 fruits and vegetables. We have arable agricultural lands. We have 15 international trade agreements, 11 trade preferential agreements, 6 bilaterals. We also have access to over 300 million people if you were to look at Brazil as being a neighbor. Of course, this is an amazing platform for development, for investment. We're an English bridge, of course, between Brazil or Latin America and the Caribbean. We are, of course, well endowed with geographic location. One of the charts I wanted to show you was the road to Brazil, the Deepwater Harbor, and why it's important. Most recently, the Brazilian government came to Guyana. They're interested in the road to Brazil being built. They're interested in the Deepwater Harbor. They're interested in 3,000 megawatts. These are all investment opportunities for Guyanese. And what I would have shown you are all the different distances between Guyana, between Brazil and Guyana, Brazil and Venezuela, and all of the ports that are available. For example, from Brazil to Guyana, it's about 398 miles. Currently, it takes them about 9 days to go from where they are to port. And so the port in Guyana is very critical. Josing showed you this morning where the road has been built through Venezuela. And that's because it's a shorter distance than through Brazil. One of the other things that the Brazilians did, and they're here all the time, just about 6 months ago, they came and spoke about a zone of development. This is where Guyana, Brazil, French Guyana, and Trinidad would grow common crops. And in indicating to us why they thought this was important, here are the numbers. Currently, if there is no investment, no road to Brazil, no Deepwater Harbor, $238 million of trade occurs. If we have the road to Brazil, the Deepwater Harbor, within 5 years, growing soya and other crops that the Brazilian government will help with Guyana, it moves from $238 million to $7.7 billion a year. And that's primarily because both the inputs and outputs would come through the Deepwater Harbor into the road to Brazil, etc. Coming to the 200 fruits and vegetables. If you were to look at the import-export deficits in the Caribbean, you'll see that Guyana has imports of 1.98 billion, exports of 1.69. Overall, in the Caribbean, we import $6.2 billion of food. Water is also being imported significantly in the Caribbean. Just last November, Amazon Resources, which is a firm out of Holland, trialed taking 2 million liters of water from Suriname to Barbados. These are our opportunities. Guyana should be exporting fresh water in tanks. Of course, when we think about utilizing our 200 fruits and vegetables, Guyana needs to create a special niche. That niche is what I would call foods that are natural. Of course, we have moringa. We don't grow it, it grows wild. Moringa has over 300 medicinal uses. We have corilla, which is good for diabetes. We have parsley. You can go on and on. And what Guyana should be doing, and these are opportunities for the diaspora to be investing in, especially since we will have gas in the next 4 or 5 years, clean energy, we should be looking not to feed just the Caribbean, but to differentiate and specialize in those particular foods. And there are several charts there. I teach at UG, a class called International Marketing and Export, and every year my class comes up with a portfolio of products exports to Brazil, and when you look at what the opportunities are, they're significant. Now we're talking about a charter city, and of course, what Guyana needs is a new capital. Right now, I'm looking at the Egyptian capital being built by a China state. They will build a new capital for 5 million people in 3 years with $8 billion. We are below sea level. The 2005 situation with flooding will tell us that within 20 years, all this area will be at risk. Professor Mandel will speak about that later. So we need a new capital, and in 2003, there was a German study which defined the area. That study has been sitting there, but ultimately we can be creating a lot of jobs with green energy if we were to move to that area. It's 1,600 square miles. Singapore is about 100 square miles. One of the other things we have which can create investment is tourism. And I'm not talking about ecotourism because that seems to be our focus. We're not competitive in ecotourism. Costa Rica gets $3.1 billion a year in investment. We hardly get 100 million. What we need to do is to use the 40 miles of beach that we have in the Essequibo. Most Guyanese do not know we have 40 miles of sand and beach in Essequibo. If you look at Baganara, that's one option. So if we were to combine sun and sand tourism and ecotourism, I think we'll have a better opportunity. We also have 75 waterfalls, so we're not really maximizing that. In terms of the green economy, which I can't show you here, I would have been able to show you about 8 or 9 investment opportunities. But let's go to oil. Oil is here in 2020. We also have 200 megawatts of gas. There's an onshore facility that needs to be built. One is being built in Manishwar. That's a 500 million investment. More needs to be done there. In terms of green economy, currently I'm working on a project of 30,000 acres in the Kanji. This is with a group in Israel called Tahal, that will create a green community that will create all of those products I was talking about, moringa, soya, Corolla, for that particular niche market. There are significant opportunities for investment there. In that particular space, we will be creating our own green energy, 2 megawatts of solar power. That too, there are many other opportunities. Currently, if you were to look at the green economy, the government has stated that by 2025, we need to have 100% renewable energies. So there's an opportunity right now for a 26 megawatt wind farm, 10 megawatts of solar power, biomass. That's the cheapest power right now in Guyana, 12 cents per kilowatt hour. All of these things are opportunities. So in terms of oil and looking at the green economy, there are a lot of opportunities there because we have to mesh the two. Water-based industries, agricultural diversification, export competitiveness using the road to Brazil, the Deepwater Harbor, and the transshipment hub. Those are all opportunities for investment in Guyana. I'd like to say one thing though. The reason why we're not seeing tremendous growth in Guyana is because we have the wrong business model in the private sector. If you were to look at the onshore facility, we have individual companies who are dominant in Guyana trying to do everything on their own. What we need is an investment fund where Guyanese in the diaspora to put in their 1,000, 2,000, create a pool, and therefore we have enough capital to do all these opportunities. But to come back here, to believe that you will be able to run a farm or to get into alternative energy without having lived here, having that experience of what management is all about, of what the difficulties in with doing business, it just won't work. Probably if the slide comes on, I will flash the pictures so that you can see. I think it's very important that you would have seen that. Yeah, and I will flash it for 2 minutes, just flash the slides, because I think that's important. It sub-optimized my presentation significantly, and I still think it's struggling to come on. But again, there are myriad of opportunities in Guyana for investment. It starts with our agricultural potential of 200 fruits and vegetables, creating a niche that is in health. We have an oil industry that needs a lot of investment in an onshore facility. We have a strategy to go green by 2025, so alternative energy in terms of wind power, solar power, hydros. We've looked at 36 sites, and I'll have to beg forgiveness. It's not responding. It's too late. Let me see if I can enable content. This is also another major opportunity. The Brazilians are asking for 3,000 megawatts. That's the Mazaruni Basin. They've already done the studies. It's about 3 billion. This was the area that Brazil spoke to us, making this a zone of economic collaboration in terms of products, agricultural products. These, of course, are the trade imbalances to show the significant water. And these are some of the companies that my students have created and exporting things based on breadfruit, bread nut, moringa. This is, of course, that large project I spoke about in terms of the 30,000 acres, moringa, soursop, Corolla. These are all looking for investors. This is the new city. This is Egypt. And of course, that's where Guyana's new city has been defined to be, North Bartica. That was a German study in 2003. Today is actually 21 years since Stanley Ming and I presented the Guyana 21 plan, the road to Brazil, the deep water harbor. Those things are still viable because we can't just depend on oil. We need to have Guyana be a transshipment point. And of course, the misery continues there. But this here is the tourism I was telling you about. We have 40 miles of this pristine beach in Essequibo, more than all the islands in the Caribbean combined. But we do nothing with it because we don't know much about it. This is Baganara, this is RY, and that's where Eddie Grant is. I will wrap up. Kaichor, we have more than one waterfall. Thank you very much.
You with two short stories, because it's through our stories that we learn to connect for progress. First is, over 30 years ago, I was flying, of course, for the GDF here, and my friends were leaving to go overseas, and the gentleman looked at me and said to me, "I suppose you'll be going next." And I looked at him and I said, "I suppose so." He said, "Well, while you're there, just remember all those little old ladies and men that were working the fields and putting their pennies together to pay taxes for you to go to school and get an education, and then you just pick up and go off and enjoy all the good life. Just think about them." And I looked at him, thought of it for a moment. I said, "No, I'll be back." And it really underscores what we are as a people and what we do. I later had another conversation with a gentleman, now passed, and that man, of course, was, let me say, Larry London. He was my boss at the time of Air Corps. And of course, Larry is very patriotic, very, very much so. The other gentleman, and this was Godwin McPherson, who has passed on, I'd asked the question, why are we spending all this money on students and sending them abroad to educate them, and then they don't come back? And he looked at me and said, "Well, young nurse, we have to do continuous training. Maybe one day we'll hit the jackpot, and something is going to happen. But in any event, it's something we have to do, and we're going to do it faithfully." So this underscores what we are as a nation. We're educated in Guyana, we're educated with Guyanese money, then we go abroad and we contribute to economies overseas. And yes, we do send remittances back home, but there is a love for Guyana and there is a need to contribute even more to this economy. Now, another short story, and I know I have time, it's not a problem, is while I was in the United States, I, of course, decided to move from New York to Atlanta. And while in Atlanta, I was doing insurance and financial services. I went to an old lady, her name was Mother Piggott, and I made a presentation. At the end of the presentation, she said to me, "Lloyd, lovely presentation, but why can't we do this for ourselves?" I looked at her and said, "I don't think we have enough people to put together the money that we need to get into these and make these institutions." He said, "We had at home, we had the New Building Society, and we would go there and we put our couple of dollars and we would build and we would put things together." So I said to her, "We don't have enough people." She said, "What? With all these Guyanese that migrate and are in Canada and the United States and London and everywhere else, we don't have enough people?" At that moment, I became very sober because what she was saying was making a lot of sense. I left that home that day. The next day, I went to see my friend and mentor, Dr. Conrad Wilson, and I spoke to him about the fact that we needed to do something more with a little group that we had, a little family group that we would put together once a year. I said, let's make this group something big. Let's invite people from all over the world that are Guyanese to be part of an experience that we can take forward and be proud of. He looked at me and said, "That sounds like a lot of work, Lloyd. I don't know if I want to take that on." I said, "I'll do it." And I started with putting together a list of Guyanese. I called New York, I called Canada, called my brother in London, and I got a nice list of about 500 people. And I sent out the first invitation to Guyana Day, and this was 1991. From then on, the Guyana Association emerged, and we all may know a little bit about what that organization is today. It has been growing. We have not been able to get together and build the institutions that we really need to be, because really and truly, by this stage, we should have a lot of banks and we should have nonprofits and we should be doing things in a bigger way. We have the people and the resources, but we must come together and make it happen. Nevertheless, I decided to focus on family after that. And I have raised 5 wonderful kids. 3 of them will be doctors next year. Got an engineer that's a partner in business. And we are inventing and bringing to the world a new product that we expect is going to change the lives of people globally. It relates to medicine management. And if you will go to the next slide. Problem is elderly struggle with medicine management. It's a problem here, it's a problem everywhere. There is increasing incidence of cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, and these things are becoming more and more an epidemic today. And more recently, we have the opioid misuse. These are all things that has to be addressed. And we are importing some of this stuff from the north. They might be equipped to handle it, but are we? The thing is, we have to truly look at some of these things and make a decision as to how we move forward. Next slide. Traditionally, medicine would be managed by just writing it down. Sometimes for persons who are in multiple medicines, it can be a challenge, because if you're in 5 or 10 medicines, you can imagine one is once a day, another is twice a day, another 3 times a day, and sometimes one is 2, 3 times a day. I mean, it has been a problem. The problem is pretty large, to the extent of $475 billion in avoidable cost opportunities. And this is by, I think that's globally? No, that's globally. by the World Health Organization. In the United States alone, it's 269. Let me make sure I'm getting these numbers right. But in any event, the numbers are very large. The opportunities are real. The solutions have not been able to keep up with the need. Continue. Next slide. This is more an adherence. And the reason why it's a problem: knowledge, attitude, state of health, support, literacy, access. These are all conditions or situations that add to the problem of adherence. Scheduling of medication, cumbersome, risk of overdosing, confusion when dealing with multiple medicines, and the rest. Monitoring, real-time tracking, next. People who died from overdoses in 2016, 57 overdoses, more than 20% involved prescription drugs, more than 74. Prescription deaths were accidental, only 7%. Overdoses were suicides, fatal prescription drug overdoses over the last decade. I've outnumbered deaths from heroin and cocaine, and also accidents. So, next slide. Next slide. These are prototypes or pictures of where we started with our invention. And the reason our inventions are different. Next slide. 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 Okay, stop here. The solutions that were available to solve the problem were primarily those that you see at the top there, pill boxes. And some were made to be electronic, some were made to just to be wireless, like the bottom, but they all have problems. They all have problems. The first one, the pill boxes, though they are in use, are generally illegal because they cannot be used in institutions. They involve taking medicine from the prescribed container, putting it into other containers, and that's prohibited generally. Cannot be used by nurses, cannot be used in an institutional setting. And if you use it at home, or you have it in your car and you get pulled over, a cop can give you a ticket for having drugs out of the prescribed container. So, where does that leave us? A process where we manage medicine in the prescribed container in such a way that it becomes legal and easy, and we intend to promote these in institutions generally, nursing care. There are millions of such establishments around the world where we have assisted living and other institutions. And this is primarily one of, okay, 1 second. I understand. I do understand. I did not create this problem, thank you. Okay, what I have here now is basically a device that will actually, when you get your medicine from the pharmacist, you will scan it into this device. It will tell you where to put it. You put it there, and the computer system knows where that medicine is. It will, at dosing time, transmit a signal to you if you have a cell phone, or you can hear it if you're in a house. You come to the unit, you will see what medicines are in a state of alert. You take it, when you pick up the medicine, on the screen will flash all the details of that medicine, how you're to use it, when was your last dose, what interactions you need to be concerned with. Should you drive? Should you drink? Should you eat different things? I mean, medicines are very, very, very critical and very technical things. And people lose their lives every day in large numbers. So this unit by itself can change the way medicine and healthcare is used globally. Right now, MIT, which is one of the leading institutions in the world, has invited me to make a presentation, which I did about 2 months ago. They were baffled. They were like, this is not possible. How can you do this? We got to study this some more. And they're inviting me now to an incubation later this year, where they're infusing about $250,000 to help to develop this project, and then of course to take it to the rest of the world. So the process is good, the potential is great. We're looking forward to a great rollout when that time comes. But first, I wanted Guyana and Guyanese to have an opportunity to participate. I'm engaging the University of Guyana. I'm engaging the Ministry of Health here. I had a meeting with the Chief Medical Officer this morning, and we are talking about collaborating for clinical studies, first of all, because there are billions of dollars out there that are allocated for research and development that we may be able to access with these new tools. So we are trying to get that started as a first effort to bring a more stable environment to medical care, and then of course to take it to the next level. So I will invite each and every one of you to follow us through our journey. If you have interest, investment, ambitions, just let us know. We're going to be trying to put persons together in order to make this a reality. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you, all the presenters, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.